I have 6:30. Um,
I do too.
hey, and
And
we are up to 50 participants.
50, I know.
So I am excited, and we are actually live streaming at the moment. So we can go ahead and get this party started. And before we do get started, Monitra, I don't know if you wanted to follow a certain program. Saw our president, Ernie Singleton, if you wanted to do a welcome.
Yes, I'd like our president to do a welcome, and then I'll introduce you and myself, and then, as the kids say, we'll get into it.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome. We hope that you are having a fabulous day and will enjoy this particular session on managing stress during the holidays. We all know that this time of the year, really from, I would say, the beginning of November all the way through mid January, can be a very stressful time, a lot of things happening. And we hope that this evening you will learn how to kind of manage that, how to deal with that, and still enjoy yourself from one day to the next. I want to give a huge thank you to our physical and mental health committee for proposing this particular idea, and because we know that this is very important. And we just want to welcome you and hope that you ask any questions, take this information back to your own individual communities and share, because this is something that we can all use, and we all go through stress at various times. And so hopefully we can learn some coping mechanisms in order to be less stressful. And I just want to close out by asking whomever is the host to respond to my message in the chat. And I look forward to hearing the rest of the presentation. And welcome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, we have almost 70 people on this evening. That's speaking volumes that we all probably need to tweak how to manage this holiday, as they say, situationships that occur when we have family gatherings and even with work and our work families. So, welcome everyone. Our presenter this evening is Christy Hitchens and yours truly, Manitra King. Both of us are licensed clinical social workers / therapists, and we want this workshop to be interactive, fun, but also for you all to learn some coping mechanisms, learn to be comfortable in setting boundaries. Yes, your uncle that always gets drunk does not have to be invited all the time. So, you ready to go, Christy? As the kids say, we're going to get into it.
We're going to go ahead and get into it. We want to be mindful of everyone's time and try to get this information in a packed sort of way so that we can get everybody on their way. So thank you, and thank you for thinking of me enough to be able to present this information to all of you. And I am so glad to see so many unfamiliar names to me, which means that the word has been spread and you are looking forward to receiving a lot of information. So we welcome you here. You see the title that's here says managing stress during the holidays. And one of the words that pops out to me, or the biggest word that pops out to me, of course, is the stress. So when Sarah Monitra indicated that she wanted this to be interactive, so do I. We're going to do a talking session here. Can anybody, or does anybody want to take a stab at what stress actually is, or what do you think stress is? You can unmute, you can put it in the chat, so we can talk about that. Don't everybody speak?
Okay. Maybe be like the teacher and call people out.
I might have to call somebody out.
Okay.
Spin the wheel, Monitra. Who can you get?
There's
Somebody
some
can
comments
answer.
in the chat.
Okay, in the chat we have mental anxiety and worry. We have a lot. We have good ones.
And we do. Anything
Stress
that
can come
elevates your
from
blood pressure.
anxiety too. Fight or flight. Absolutely fight or flight. Fear of the unknown. Anything that elevates your blood pressure. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Excellent. So we try to read off all of those things when your body and mind can't handle the day-to-day activities, feeling of being overwhelmed. Wonderful answer. So I'll just grab out the definition, according to the dictionary, it says a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So a lot of you kind of hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the anxiety and you're talking about the mind and the body not being able to handle things. So now we just have this word stress, but now we're talking and focusing on stress during the holidays. So we all know that there's a level of anxiety that comes up with a lot of most all of us here are women at this point in time. We know women spearhead a lot of different things when it comes down to family oriented, family balancing family when you have children or just any dynamic for that reason. Women kind of spearhead that. So we have an extra layer of stress that's added to us. So we want to talk about what that looks like. So popping into the first slide, what is and what does stress look like?
Another thing I'd like to add about women, not only do we spearhead, we're the negotiators, we're the peace wakers, we're the multitaskers, we're the navigators, we're the picking up, coordinating relatives from the airport, a lot of hats.
All of those.
And we are afraid to ask for help, or we don't ask for help when we need it.
And that is a big one. So what does that look like sometimes when we're doing all of that and we're not asking for help? So common signs of stress. And I know most of you could read all of this right here, but we're going to kind of highlight a couple of things. The feelings. How do you feel when you become stressed? First thing that comes to mind, irritable. I can say that all the time. Irritated all the time, aggressive, wound up. I think someone put that in the chat as well. Anxious. Someone put that in the chat as well. Overburdened or overwhelmed. We had that in the chat as well. So based on a lot of these different signs and a lot of different answers from you all actually know what it is to feel stressed. You know what happens when you feel stressed. So now we need to kind of figure that out. I'm reading in the chats, financial and personal activities that have taken control over your thought, as well as balancing. I missed that last one. Balancing it all can get very overwhelming. So all of those key phrases that are being thrown out are excellent. And one thing that it is great is that we're able to talk about it and you're able to put those things and those feelings into words. So now coming into this big group, again, we want to talk through those things. And feeling neglected or lonely, like your thoughts are racing and you can't switch those off. Those are all being put in there. Being depressed, uninterested in life, excessive worry, a sense of dread and unable to enjoy yourself. So if you're thinking about this entire list that we're talking about right now, and then you add into the holidays. So the holidays, let's come up with some words that we normally associate with the holidays. How about that? Can we throw some things out there? I would say happy. I would say nostalgia. Family, good food, busy, love, happiness, joy, excitement, cheer, shopping, warmth, travel, peace. Oh, we got a lot of good ones out here.
Okay. Who put expensive? Because we're going to talk about that as well.
That was Sarah Kimberly. All right. So now think about these two things that we have here now. We've talked about the common signs of stress and what those feelings bring about, but then we've also listed some things which you associate with the holidays are about. And sometimes those things don't go together. So how can we have happiness and depression at the same time? How can we have excitement and excessive worry at the same time? So how do you deal with all of these feelings coming into? So let's talk about all of that. Next slide.
I'd like to add, there was an earlier comment about keeping it in and handling it all. So even though you may look like you're happy, underneath is a whole nother face. And also underneath the whole conflict of feelings that, you know what, I should be happy, but maybe there's grief and memory tied to the holiday now.
Exactly. So then that brings us into, how does that stress make you hate? So, have those feelings that we know what stress is. We have the feelings that we know what we're supposed to be feeling like when it comes into the holidays and with those things come. But how do we actually behave in the midst of all of it when we're irritated? Do we put on a fake smile? Do we, stuff all our feelings down so that we can smile and get through the holidays? Tell everybody, oh, I'm okay. I got this. I can handle it. What do we do? Or do you find yourself doing some of these things on the list? Finding it hard to make decisions, snapping at people when you're supposed to be surrounded by family and love and warmth and good food and friends. Are you biting your nails? Are you picking at your skin? Are you eating too much or too little? Are you smoking and over consuming alcohol more than usual during this time? I want to take out smoking. I hope none of us do much of that. But you find your anxiety playing into that, which causes you to self-medicate sometimes so that you're not feeling some of those things temporarily. So those are some of the things that we need to be observant of to make sure that we are addressing. And I'm reading the comments while we're talking, and says, smiling. Hold on, let me click back on that one again. Smile and ensure everyone is taken care of. Then I find time to myself to really think and not eating much. So yes, you at some point start to become aware of what it is that you're doing to actually be able to cope through the feelings that you're having and the behaviors that you're exhibiting.
I'd like to talk about one behavior because I see it coming up a lot in the chat.
Mhm.
Smiling, faking it till you make it.
Till it make it.
Why do you think we do that? Especially as women of color. Why do you think we put on the smile and we're immaculately dressed and making sure everybody's taken care of and you are miserable inside? Why do you think we do that?
Expectations.
So somebody said, figure it out later. Okay.
I
Defend.
want to touch on what Soror President said with expectations. So we put that on because it's expected. It's expected that we have it all together as women. Afraid to be judged. Mm-hmm. I believe it's a learned trait from our parents. Now that's interesting because, and I hope I don't spin off on this and help keep me focused, Sarah King, but I'm looking at this when it says a believed learned trait from our parents. When we talk about parents, you're talking about a generation ago, or maybe you can talk about 2 generations ago. And 2 generations ago, we are in different work societies. We're in different states of expectation. And maybe it was easier for our parents to take on that level of responsibility because maybe as a woman at that time, she might not have worked. So being in the family and controlling the things that happen with the family was a normal thing that didn't have the added pressure of working and doing those 2 things at the same time. I did hear somebody come off of mute.
Oh, you probably did. Oh no, it's fine. It was myself, but I also believe the same way. We hold ourselves to a high standard, and even though no one else have us to that high expectation or standard, we put so much pressure on ourselves to feel that we are not set for failure or we can't do wrong. We're not allowed to mess up, even though that's not the expectations. But we as women put that pressure on ourselves to where we can't fail, because if we fail, everything fails. So we more so put that lion aspect on ourselves, as in we are the dominant, the male, the female, the child. We are that comfort for ourselves and everyone else.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Thank you for making that point too.
You're welcome.
I think about the movie Bad Moms, and which is really great. And then there's also Bad Moms Christmas, which I really loved because it was these younger moms who weren't the best moms, but they were making it happen for their kids. But then their mothers step in with all these expectations, and it's like, oh, is that the color scheme you decided to decorate the Christmas tree this year, darling? And it's wonderful, that whole dynamic of, okay, mom's here, I'm not pleasing her. I haven't met her bar. Will I ever meet her bar? And just the dynamics, into the story is end up making peace and in detente. But we always think about pleasing, looking for validation, making sure we're doing it right. And that's really all smoke and mirrors. Because the bottom line about the holidays is truly about connection, connecting with the people you're with.
Especially going back to when we talked about, holidays and the expectations and what you're supposed to feel. Social media and media actually does. You have this commercial about Thanksgiving coming up, and all the warm colors that are in the background when you're decorating the table, and the warm scents and the smells that you get from these holidays. And that's what you want to feel, warm and bubbly. And I'm actually looking at a comment that Sarah Kelly Brown made, is because she says, why are we doing that? Because we don't want to look like how we feel. So that means that, so what we're doing is we're covering up. So at the same time, these stressors are already there prior to the holidays coming up. And now it's just adding on to it. So I guess the root of the problem is, or the root that we have to deal with, is try to figure out what our stressors are and get to the root of that to solve and come up with a coping skill so that we don't find ourselves being overwhelmed every time another event comes up. And it doesn't even have to be the holidays, but because that's the season that we're in right now, then that's what we're talking about, because the pressure is adding on. So very good so far. Guys, great interaction with that. And keep putting those comments in the chat, because we're reading it and we're looking at them and we're picking things out, and we don't want anything missed. So if you do have something or a point that you want to make, please unmute yourself and interrupt so that we can address that as well.
And I'm just going to throw this question out there. Why are we so uncomfortable with looking how we feel? Uncomfortable with that.
Society expectations.
I ditto that. It will open up most times emotionally. It opens up a windstorm of emotions, and it oftentimes can turn into a meltdown and nothing gets done. So you suck it up and you shed a few tears in the corner, and then you go back to cutting onions. And nobody really pays attention to the fact that, something is truly wrong emotionally because you look okay.
And I think a lot of times if you're labeled as the strong one, then we want to uphold that title of being the strong one. But the strong friend needs help sometime too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those are the ones that we need to check on more than others, because being strong means that you're taking on more of a burden. You have taken on others' burdens more than anyone, as to the reason why you've gotten that title as being strong.
Absolutely. And that title goes back to 400 years ago. Started in slavery.
Yeah.
When our child was sold on the auction block and we couldn't show any emotion.
Yeah.
I had a manager,
and we had to keep it going for. Who was that? Kelly? We lost you.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Kelly. No, I was saying that I think that we get the title strong. I was thinking about a manager that I had when I was a nurse on the floor. And she would always give me the worst patients. Not that I mind, because I was actually like a new nurse at the time. So I looked at it as, I'm going to get all the experience with all these different diagnoses. And she told me that she gave me those patients because I'm strong. And my colleague, who we used to kind of pair together sometimes, she's fragile. And you can take it, or you can handle it better. And I'm like, well, we all new nurses. Like, how did I get to be strong? Because I literally just walked across the stage and got my degree. So how am I so strong to handle the worst patients? And she's so fragile. and she's breaking down crying and all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, am I strong? I tried to put a positive spin on it, but I was just thinking that maybe she thought, well, you're the black girl, you're the strong black girl. And I've heard her use that comment before to another colleague of mine, because we're strong. So we got the worst patients because y'all strong, y'all can handle it.
So you made a good point though, Kelly, when you're saying that they are feeding into her because she's the fragile one, so to speak. So we can't put too much on her because she can't handle it. But they're giving you because they feel like you're strong. And I'm reading this comment that's in the chat from Nelson. It says we feel that not just first impressions, but that all impressions matter because we are always being looked at, and breaking down and showing your true feelings isn't acceptable in today's society. So how do we look at that? How can we fix that if it's not acceptable by societies? What do we do to adjust that and turn that around? Because in one instance, they're saying, oh, she's fragile. We don't want to put too much on her because we don't want to break her. But then you're saying that if we do break down, then we're looked at as being, weak. And so we've got
it's looked at like you can't do the job, or if you object, then you're being aggressive and confrontational, or it's either one extreme or the other. You can't handle the job, or you're being confrontational when you object by always getting the worst patient.
Mm-hmm. But then that leads back to a lot of things with, I think it brings back to communication as well, because we have to learn how to be able to communicate what it is that we're feeling in a way that does not make us weak. Because at the same time, I can have a conversation, and it's a lot of times about a way of presenting things. I can say no, and say no in a pleasant way without saying that I'm weak or showing that I'm weak. Instead of saying that I'm fragile because I'm denying this and don't want to take it on, I may be, can I be looked at as saying, no, I'm setting boundaries because I am taking into consideration, the situation or how much I feel like I can handle without breaking down. So then let's just have a conversation around that and start to try to change people's opinions instead of being fragile. We're looking at our mental health and setting those boundaries.
I think it's also
I'm sorry.
I think it's also important when we start to build connections with people who we are in the environments with, so that they can understand how we best show our vulnerabilities. Because a lot of times we feel like being vulnerable is being weak, but there's vulnerability, there's strength in being vulnerable. But you have to learn how to trust those who you have the connection with to be vulnerable around them. And I think that will allow us the opportunity to, show more, to set more boundaries and begin to communicate effectively how we need our space and our time and how we can say no sometimes.
Exactly. And that's a perfect point. And I see in the comment where a lot of you are echoing that. So, it's that whole stigma. And I'm looking at Kelly Lathan. I think we have to be okay with not being okay, being honest with yourself first, and then you can let others know where you are respectfully. Being tired and weak for a moment is okay. No is a complete sentence, and I completely agree with that. So taking that into consideration and not trying to get too far off track, but we want to now figure out, we're talking and we're engaging in this, but we need to be able to apply this to our everyday lives and coming up, because this is what we're dealing with. How they say talk is cheap. Let's put it into practice. Let's put it into practice. Let's figure out exactly where we as an individual, because while I'm going through this PowerPoint and while we're discussing this, I'm picking out where I fit in here and what things I need to be addressing in order to be okay moving forward. Let's see, I think we can go to the next slide. So we've talked about a lot of things when it comes down to stressors and what those things are. Now we're talking about other added stressors because we're talking about coming into the holidays. We talked about, you know, the good food and the warmth and the love and the expectations and things. What happens on that day or when it comes around? We're involved with family. I know Sarah Manitra King mentioned, she said, you know, sometimes it's okay not to invite the uncle that always gets drunk, you know, in order to be able to avoid certain situations that might bring out stressful things. It's okay to say no. So other added stressors, managing family relationships. Let's just hit the highlights here. Divorce and remarriage. I mean, let's just be honest. We're living in a society where nobody has a perfect, you know, round family. Everybody comes from different type backgrounds. You know, some people may have stepmother or fathers, may have some ex-stepmother and fathers and new stepmothers and stepfathers. And you got siblings across the board that you find out about later on, which we have blended families. Now we've got divorce, we've got remarriage, we've got blended families. How do we make all of this work? How do we make everybody happy and feel warm and welcome into the family, that the dynamics that we have right now? And then let's not talk about what COVID did to the holidays and the upcoming holidays. Sometimes a lot of people look forward to those holidays. Sometimes, and I'll just say this, I've had some people admit to me that they were kind of glad when COVID came around because it shut everything down and then everybody had to go to their own homes. And guess what happened? A lot of people found some peace. Think about that. Any comments on that or any further thoughts that anyone has?
I think good evening. I think one thing is that you can't make everybody happy, particularly in these kind of situations, right? So you might not appease everybody by going to everybody's house who's hosting this year, or you might not invite people who don't honor your true self. And I think that's what's most important when you're navigating something like this around the holidays. You have to do what feels best for you, and right. And so if that means you're not gonna commune and fellowship with certain people, then you're not gonna do that. And you have to be okay with that. And I think that's something that Black women in particular deal with, is that we're okay with our feelings, but we're not okay with the guilt that we feel about, I don't want to go over here, or I don't want this person at my house, or I don't want to do this. You have to be okay with the no that is the full sentence. So I think honor yourself and do what feels best for you, and be okay that everybody might not be that happy, right? So your mama might be upset that you don't want Uncle such and such over here, but look, this is my house, this is my family, and this is what I want to do.
Absolutely, and I definitely agree with you on that. I'm glad you brought that point out because, of course, it goes back to what we were saying, that no, it's okay to say no. It's okay to set your boundaries. You know, at the end of the day, you know, this is your mental health that we're speaking of, because, you know, one thing can lead into a lifelong trail of issues that it may take you years to work out for one incident. So if saying no this one time is going to alleviate that, then we have to build up our courage to be able to say that no and be okay with it. I'm reading in the chats and I'm trying to skim through, and Manitra, if you can help me, or
sure.
President. While y'all are skimming through, I just wanted to interject to say that sometimes it's okay to say nothing, just don't go. You know, sometimes we deliberate on how I'm gonna say it, when I'm gonna say it, what am I gonna say, and try to anticipate this argument or confrontation, but silence is golden. So if you know, just don't feel comfortable, just set it out.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. Excellent point. And I'm reading in here that COVID put a lot of stress on the holidays and for families, and which it did. It brought on its own set of anxieties, along with the fact of we experienced a lot of loss. I'm sorry, and of loved ones. So now that changes the dynamics of future family gatherings, because now you're dealing with your usual stress of trying to gather and get everything together. And if you throw grief into that in that mix, then we have another set of issues to deal with as well. So we talked about the expectations. I did see someone mention in the chat early on about tradition, and that builds up the anxiety because of those traditions that they have there. Difficult relationships with siblings and family members. So now we're back to that uncle that likes to get drunk, that comes to the house, that we have to say no to. So if you know these things are going on, then ahead of time comes back to communication. So now it's, if you have to be that family member to step up and stand up and say, okay, look, we're gonna have a family meeting before the holidays get here, and let's talk about some issues that have been a black sheep in the family, so to speak, or the elephant in the room that nobody has ever talked about before. But it creates anxiety for everyone, but nobody says anything. So why do we continue doing this? Let's talk about it and let's change something so that we're not putting undue stress on us.
I always equate it with, why are you buying a ticket to get on that crazy train? Don't buy the ticket.
Don't buy it.
Simple. Don't even go to the station. Now, if everybody else wants to get together, guess what? Me and mine, we're just gonna get together and have a peaceful time, and that's okay. But be comfortable with not buying a ticket to get on the crazy train.
Exactly.
Because then you're stuck.
Right. So how about we start setting up some new traditions? Because I'm looking in the chat, and someone made a comment. I can't find it right now, but did read it. Someone made a comment saying that being able to have to divide yourself up amongst family members and being split to go here, to go there. And you want to please everybody, but one thing's for sure, it's just not enough time in the day. You don't have a clone of yourself. So, and I do remember having to do that as well when my husband had his parents were alive. My parents are still alive. When my grandparents were alive, we were young with young children. And when the holidays come, everybody expects you to be everywhere, especially when you have children. They want to be around the grandchildren. Everybody wants a piece. But it is so hard to be able to do that. And it does put a lot of stress on it. And that stress can go from not just you, but it can roll over into your relationships. Because if you're a family, both husband and wife, and the husband likes to spend as much time with his family as you like to spend with yours, then what do? We have to have a conversation so that we can bring everything to the table. And a lot of it, reducing some stress, could just be talking about it. Let's come up with a plan.
Especially,
and be okay with saying no. I'm sorry, Monitra.
I think she froze a little bit. But yeah, so I grew up, and I'm the only girl, so I grew up in a household where my dad's birthday is on the 15th, Christmas is on the 25th, right? So my mother always ingrained in me, well, your daddy, don't put his birthday gifts on the same day. He got to have them separate. So she would buy oodles and goodles of stuff, and she would wrap half of it for birthday and half. I'm not doing all of that. I just don't want to do it. That's just, and when she left this world, that tradition left with her, because I can't do it. I'm not keeping that up. And that was just something for me and my peace of mind that I had to just, and he just has to deal with it. Everybody has to deal with grief differently. So that's one thing in particular. The other thing is, preparing a whole lot of food. He's older, we're older, the girls are independent. And we talked about Thanksgiving today, and he got a few little requests, and whether I outsource it and buy it from somebody, he doesn't care. It doesn't bother him. But just sitting up slaving for weeks, putting things in the freezer, that's what my mother would do. And I'm just not feeling so inclined.
Exactly.
And I feel so much better for that.
Right. And so you've gotten to a point where you understand your boundaries and what you put in place. So now you're implementing all of these coping skills to make life easier for you. But then you're introducing some new things to other people that they're looking at. Okay, it's okay, Daddy, we're going to discuss this. and you found out that he's okay with some things too. And sometimes it's just a matter of talking about it so that everyone be on the same page to understand how we can reduce this level of stress that we put on ourselves for no reason. So excellent point. Monitra, I knew you were trying to talk before you got frozen.
I wanted to segue into doing new traditions. And we like the old way of doing it, but new traditions are fun. And I love the comment about having new foods. Do we really always have to have the mirliton, the bell pepper, the pot of gumbo, all these labor intensive foods? I know this sounds crazy. We can go healthy on desserts, but we can change it up, make it easier, and make it more enjoyable for everyone. Somebody said going out to eat.
Yeah. And I think, again,
so what new traditions have you I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
When
I was wondering, have you all started any new tradition?
We used to, when my family was larger, when we were larger and we could travel, a tradition that we did have all the time was to go to the movie on Christmas Day. We'd have the regular stuff in the morning, and then we would go to the movie, but we wouldn't necessarily all seeing the same movie because people had their own thing they wanted to see. But we were all at the theater and seeing the movie that we wanted to see. Kind of like this was more so when I was like in my 20s and stuff, and and we would go to Houston, or the people from Houston would come here. Now it's not so much, just because a lot of people have died off, unfortunately. So we don't do that anymore, but we definitely did that, some years ago. And it was a great time.
I'm gonna have to piggyback on that with you, Ernest, because we picked up the same tradition when my kids were younger. When my sister would come in from Houston, our Houston folks, they would come in, and Christmas, you spend all day, and all right, it's time to get out of the house. What can we do? And the only thing that was open was the movie theater is open. Let's go to the movie. So I believe the entertainment world, they're now dropping new movies out for Christmas because they want to capitalize on that business. So a new tradition, anything can pop up at this point because everything is open. Nothing really closes during the holidays.
Yes,
not for a couple of hours.
See at one of the comments I see where she says that they're going to Disney, and I've heard a lot of people do that during the Thanksgiving or the Christmas holiday. It's a very popular time to go.
Taking trips. So yes, all of these things that we're doing to try to alleviate the undue stress of the tradition. And how do we fulfill those expectations?
I'd like to.
Let's not fulfill those expectations. Let's make some new.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd like to say we started a new tradition with my grandson when he became a teenager. When we go to Texas, to their house for Christmas, they have early service and late service for church. So he always wants us to go to IHOP before the early service people get in. So we go to IHOP and eat breakfast, and we leave there and go to church. And when they were coming to my house, we never did that because I was traditional, but I've gotten used to his tradition now. And when I go to Texas, I'm ready to go to IHOP first before church.
Exactly. So now you expected it. So very good. You embraced it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Good. This has been a wonderful conversation so far, you guys. And we want to make sure that we're hitting on any different ideas or that someone is bringing up. I'm looking at it, and I like the ideas of taking a trip. And sometimes we want to get the family together. A lot of us come from large families. And some families, let's just be honest, they might not have the funds to be able to do those things and enjoy it. But the ones that can, let's just start from there. And then maybe start planning earlier for those members that may not be able to get to the next time. So, just thinking about those things, and again, bringing back the conversation, talking, so that everybody understands the reason moving forward. because sometimes in those conversations, you'll be able to figure out that a lot of persons that were doing things before, they may come out and honestly say, okay, well, you know what? I really didn't like that anyway. I was hoping somebody was going to say something, but sometimes it takes one person to just kind of speak up to start the conversation so that we can change things to relieve the stress. And that's what we're talking about, you guys, the stress that we're keep putting on ourselves. So very good, very good. Friendsgiving and Friendsmas are newer traditions.
So here's the one that might make a lot of us uncomfortable. Dealing with grief and memories. How do we go about handling that? Because most people will try and just stuff it down and, you know, pretend like, oh, mama's not here, daddy's not here, we're all good. But it's still with us. It's an imprint. So how do we deal with the grief? Remember the good, okay? Honor them.
Share the good memories.
Something my family has done.
Absolutely.
Hi everybody. Something my family has done to deal with grief, because our family was hit with loss after loss in a short period of time. So we were really kind of taking some of that hard. So we would have just a moment during over the dinner to kind of everyone share one of their favorite memories about that person. And in that way, we can kind of come to some funny story and start laughing. And then we're able to kind of change or shift the mood of the room, because it does get very heavy. Especially when you lose the matriarchs of your family, you know, that is really hard on a lot of people. So.
And that's good.
I know for us, for Thanksgiving, we will have a candle at, again, enough food for third world country. We'll have a candle and we'll have the family member, like I brought a picture of dad, everybody picture of their parent. So it was like they were with us the entire day. Then we could recall memories, laugh.
Excellent idea. So let's move to the next slide. Sure, we're covering. All right. Nitra, I'm gonna let you take a stab at this slide.
Why do certain things make me feel stressed? The amount of stress we feel in different situations can depend on how we think about it. So I'm always telling my clients, you know, we have our thinking stuff over here, and then we have our emotional stuff over here. And God forbid they merge together. They really do need to merge together. But, you know, we tend to want to think it because it makes it more comfortable. We try to rationalize, sometimes making sense out of the nonsense. But our emotional self doesn't want to carry that back. So it's going to figure out a way to make you realize, that don't make no sense. You need to restructure your cognition and make it more healthier for you. So our perception of the situation. Now, this is interesting because, you know, I may say the sky is blue. Somebody may say it's azul. Somebody may say, no, it's actually gray and partly cloudy. Our perception many times is based on our own frame of reference and our own life experiences. So somebody says, if it looks like a duck, quack like a duck. Our perception on how we interpret the situation, again, believe it or not, it's not based on our thoughts, it's actually based on our feelings. So remember that. Then, how skilled are we at dealing with the pressure? Now, here's where the fun part comes. You know, here's where the rubber hits the road. Some of us think we can handle the stress really, really well. And like my daughter was like, Mom, you might want to take a time out. She says, no, you need to take a time out. Not realizing I'm looking like the Harry Crane Beach. Because my perception is, everything under control. I can do it all. Listen to what other people are telling you. If they tap you on the shoulder and says, you know what, let me help you with this. Or sometimes listen to that inner voice that's saying, you need to put yourself in a little time out. Go take 30 minutes just to cool off. Or did she really say my potato salad? Use her recipe. Because, you know, some people, which is very interesting, who won't bring anything to the table, but always has something to say about how something was prepared. That's always fun. And then they want to take food home with them and come with like 8 Tupperware containers, knowing they bought in a little pan like this, like something really, really, really small. And we know we had 80 people. And this is all you're going to bring? Yeah, no. And you have to smile and say, oh, you can take the last of the homemade peanut butter cookies. And the last one, our emotional resilience to stressful situations. Now, resilience, a lot of it is what you're born with. A lot of it is what you've seen modeled in front of you. And then you sort of combine that into your own recipe. Some of us are very, very good at being, you know, the Molly from the Titanic, Molly Brown. She coordinated that life raft. Once they got to land, she coordinated getting people blankets. She was that girl. And we tend to be that girl, to be able to handle it all, make it happen, no matter what, realizing, my arm just got broken, but I'm still here, shuffling, cooking, toting, making it all happen, ignoring my own physical symptoms. But resilience is recognizing when you really need to slow it down, when you really need to change your language, such as, Kelly, when you talked about the charge nurse giving you the harder, more difficult clients, our language. Maybe if you had said, oh, well, thank you that you think I'm that competent, but why don't we just kind of sort of share this? Why don't she take 5 of the difficult and I keep 5, and then give me 5 of her easy clients, and then she can take 5 of my easy clients. You know, it doesn't always have to be confrontational, even though yes, no, and HE double hockey sticks no is okay to use. But sometimes just change it, because then they'll respond differently. Say, no, I don't think I don't want to be responsible for doing 4 roasts and 2 chickens. Why don't we spread it around a little bit? I don't mind doing 2 roasts and maybe 1 chicken, but maybe you can bring some in, or just order one in, pick something up from Piccadilly. I don't care. Which helps foster your resilience, because you don't have to take it. And you know, we Southern girls have a nice way of phrasing things, especially for that person that really, really can't cook. You know what? Sam's has all of these wonderful, beautiful paper products. Why don't you go and get some of those? Just saying the truth.
Yes, right. And so that brings us into ways to manage the stress. And I do believe, so not to be redundant, we really talked about most of the things that here on this list. Knowing your limits, let go of your sense of control, that expectation that we placed on ourselves, those high expectations. Being able to say no and set boundaries, being flexible and accept change. You all have kind of gone through this whole PowerPoint by the discussions that we've had. So based on those things, you have it within you. Now we have to be able to apply it to make sure that we're using it for our benefit as well. Mm-hmm. And I do want to make mention of one of the comments in the chat before we move too far, because I don't think we've touched upon this, and this can go into a whole nother seminar at that. But Sandra Page mentioned lack of sleep will enhance stress and impair cognitive function, making the emotional side and thinking side confused. Overstimulation. So we have to take that into consideration as well. You know, the lack of sleep.
Believe it or not, lack of sleep is actually one of the main forms of torture for prisoners of war. They just keep them up, because you can become psychotic by not getting enough sleep. The brain needs to reboot.
It does. So there's a lot of things. Another one, ways to manage stress: live and let live. Allow others to make up their own minds and not questioning their choice. Yeah, so you're not taking on someone else's burdens by trying to think for them sometimes, because I know as women, as mothers, as at the head of the household, we take on a lot of pressure and we do a lot of thinking for a lot of people. And sometimes we have to learn how to let go. And self-awareness is key. It is important to know your limits and feel comfortable with working within your limits without the guilt. So we've had that word floating around a couple of times. A lot of people have said that guilt. You know, so those are a lot of key words that we need to pull out of here that we need to maybe try to eliminate from our vocabulary in certain situations. Don't take on those things. It's unnecessary. Give yourself grace and accept the fact that you are not Superman. I like that. Excellent. Excellent. The next slide. And so that brings us to self-care. How are we taking care of ourselves? Talk about the emotional, the mental, environmental, spiritual. We've touched upon all of this, but what are we doing? And can someone give an example of at least one example of each? I want you all to talk. Put it in the chat.
Massages, yes.
Okay. I think that's on top of everybody's list. Social detox, social self-care, retail therapy.
Breath work, yes. Love breath work.
Yes, journaling.
Yoga.
Exercising. Meditation. Playing with your pets. Definitely. So a lot of these different examples can actually go into several of these pillars, different pillars that we have here. Writing, working out. I know that working out releases those endorphins. Go ahead, Miss Jade.
Hey, I'm sorry. I love taking a good little road trip just to drive, and even if I can't go far, but just kind of getting on the road around the time. Well, now the sun is setting like around 4 o'clock, but before, just kind of getting some nice music playing and just have a moment to myself in the car riding around, and definitely prayer and just taking time for silence is also something that I do too. Even when I'm going to work, I take that drive as a moment to be, care about myself and just sit in silence.
So all the things that you just mentioned, I'm glad you said that, because while you were talking, I'm looking at each one of these pillars, and you're dealing with the social self-care, because I saw someone say, pulling away from that social media aspect. You driving on that road your way, you've taken a break from all of that. The environmental self-care, you're placing yourself in a different environment. You're driving around, looking at different things. It's putting you in a different mindset at that. So you're dealing with your mental self-care as well. The recreational, it can still serve as that. You said you love to ride around and do that. So, one particular event can actually take care of a lot of different layers of these pillars of self-care that we're talking about. So if you are sitting here while we're talking, scroll through the chat and look at a lot of the different things that everyone has placed in their chat, and you'll be able to see there may be some things that you have not thought about doing that you can take upon yourself to try to help yourself out with these ways of taking care of yourself. Rest is always good. And sometimes we got to look at rest differently too, because a lot of times we think that we're resting, we're really not, because someone's definition of rest might be actually sleep. However, someone else's definition of rest might be laying on the couch, I am watching TV. I'm not really thinking about it, but it's playing in the background. So Are you really resting your body when you have stimulation going on? So we need to look at those different things of what rest actually is too, to make sure that we're not still stimulating our body and our body is not getting the rest that it needs to be able to break away from the overstimulation that we have all the time.
And sometimes rest is standing in your jammies all weekend, eating brownies and ice cream.
Yeah.
Not that I know of anybody that would do that, but
I'm looking at all of these,
but not moving.
things. Riding horses and being one with nature. Ooh, I have to find me a horse to ride. I'm sometimes afraid of the silent and quiet.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is interesting.
That is interesting.
Hmm.
To that person who's afraid of the silent and the quiet, on a good day, watch clouds and just let your mind look at the shapes that are ebbing and flowing. And that will allow you to get more comfortable in just thinking about nothing.
Yep.
Or just sit in your backyard and listen to the birds or the wind in the trees and just let your mind focus on that.
And the wind in the trees, and this one's will go sit on the levee. Maybe the crashes of the water
Absolutely.
can actually be soothing as well too. So, all right. So moving forward, we are going into our hour right now at 7:26. So we want to make sure we've had a lot of good discussion. Our next slide, make sure that we're not missing anything. Absolutely. Look at that. We have touched upon a lot of things. So for the next 4 minutes to kind of close this out, we've had a lot of great discussion, a lot of great ideas. What I'd like to happen at this point is if you could just think about the things that we've talked about from the beginning up until now, and what's stood out in your mind the most about how to manage deal with stress coming into the holidays. So just put your thoughts in the comment. And again, I'd like everyone to kind of take a minute and just scroll through the comments, because sometimes a lot of people don't like to say things, but reading other people's comments or what their ideas and suggestions could actually help them with dealing with something that they're not ready to talk about. So I think that's a good way to kind of wrap things up. And if you do have a question or comment before, please feel free to unmute yourself so that we can discuss it as well.
And one comment I saw, she said, fold up her cape. Don't forget to take off the boots too, girl. Cape and boots in the closet. So the remaining few minutes, I'm going to turn it over to our president for closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Christy and Monitra, for this very informative session. Sometimes I was trying to catch up on what was in the chat and it was going so fast. Y'all are just so talkative tonight. I think we probably could have gone on for another half hour or hour or so and people would still be engaged. So, I mean, this is a topic that isn't always talked about, but it definitely should be talked about and discussed on how to combat just all of the various issues that came up this evening. And so we can see that we all have ways to cope, but do we always do it? Probably not. But hopefully as you leave this setting this evening, you will use some of those ideas that came through in the chat to cope and have a great holiday season. And speaking of a great holiday season, we want you all to join us at Crimson Market this coming Saturday from 9 to 4 p.m. at the Southern University Laboratory School. There's a $5 Angel Tree donation, and you can start to get your shopping on. Find some unique things. We have a lot of vendors that will be out. We have food trucks as well. So please come out and join us at Crimson Market, 9 to 4, Southern University Lab School. Also, look forward to a special screening of The Color Purple next month. We are going to have a screening, a private screening. The date is a date that's special in my heart. It is December 21st. It's my birthday.
Oh no.
But Baton Rouge Sigma Alumni Chapter, in conjunction with Louisiana Tri-Parish Alumni Chapter, will be screening The Color Purple. We have a private theater. In the next few days, we will be putting out the information so that you can purchase tickets. So be looking on our social media for that information. So it is coming up. And in January, we have the Crimson Soiree on January 12th, 2024 at the Renaissance Hotel. Please check our social media feeds. Tickets are still available for that. That is open to the public. We are honoring our community partners for that particular event. And then on January 14th is our Founders Day celebration. That is closed to members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So if you are on here and you are a member of the sorority, please join us. Tickets are still on sale for that. We will have Joan T. Mulholland as our special guest. So please make sure that you are following our threads. We have a lot of various events coming up over the next few months, and we look forward to seeing you there. Do we have any other comments from our awesome presenters or our Physical and Mental Health Committee Chair?
I would just like to say thank you so much for all the participants that logged on while we're streaming live. We had over 100 participants just on the actual Zoom presentation itself. I'm not sure how many were tuned in live, but that goes to show that the topic is important to a lot of people. And I think we need to keep the discussion going as well. So I do believe we have, and Anitra, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's a wellness moment for December as well. And if there's not,
yes.
Okay, so tune in for some more information on that. We can kind of continue the conversation moving into the next month. So join us, spread the word. Again, I think it's an important topic as it shows by the number of interests that we have right here. So let's keep talking, you guys, so that we can get our mental health in order.
I'm sorry, it's not December, it'll be January. And
January.
It's gonna be from couch to 5K, setting healthy goals for your mind, body, and soul.
Okay, great. So we're still keeping the conversation going. So again, thank you to everyone. If you have time, maybe we'll leave the comments up in the chat just so you can scroll through. If there's something that you missed, a point that you want to highlight as well. So please feel free to go. And you all have a